But the Lord of the Rings can be said that it's like somewhat like the New Testament of Tolkien's works, because it comes in that it is the very final of Tolkien's works in chronologically inside Middle-earth. And there are a lot of other stories and books, but Silmarillion, The Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit are the most well-known and the main works, and later on I will mainly concentrate on them. But the main themes of the legendarium of Tolkien are the battle between good and evil. That is one of the main themes, and is present actually from the very start of the legendarium in the creation story, where the sort of the Satan figure corrupts even the music of creation. But at the very heart of the stories are in fact we as humans and elves. The elves and humans are in fact biologically the same species, and spiritually they are very similar. But the only difference is that elves are immortal and men are mortal. But they both are called the children of God by Tolkien in the Silmarillion, and they have the special destiny inside the works, and their works are mainly concerned about the immortal elves and the mortal men. So even the angelic figures and all sorts of ents and everybody the mythological creatures are not the interest of Tolkien, but we people as people. Even the elves are a representation of our inner being. And the reason why the elves are immortal is that they are bound to this world of ours. They desire, their most important desire is to modify this world, and they get their joy out of God's creation. But men are always desire for something more and long for something better, and that is why they are directed directly towards God, according to Tolkien in this legendarium. And so because men are always directed towards God, they can die and go to God when they die. But the elves, when they die, they do not go to God, they go to the land of the angels, Valinor, and there they get a new body which is identical to the one they had before. So even if they would like to go to God, they cannot. So there is a tragedy even in this immortality of elves. And death, death in these works of Tolkien is the special gift of God given to human beings, to men. And the third most important race in Tolkien's works are the dwarves, and they are a special case because they are not counted among the children of God, but because they were not created, or their bodies were created by an angelic being, Avala. But they are like human beings, they are mortal, but they cannot leave the world. And according to Tolkien, in the end, the dwarves also will be called the third children of God. But then the figures that the little hobbits are in fact human beings and men, just like any other. They are only just like very small, and this is not very surprising at all, because there are still pygmy people around the world, and actually a fossil of a pygmy, of an very old pygmy in Indonesia, wasn't it named after a...
Glorious people.
Yeah, they were nicknamed the hobbits or something like that. Yeah. And in any case, the hobbits are the smallest of all human races, and they are very humble because of that, but they can be also really like petty and gossipy, which comes, nobody's perfect. And they are, the smallest and least of the peoples are in fact the key to salvation and redemption in Tolkien's works. And But the question in Tolkien's works is that can evil ever be defeated in the world? Even though, however humble we are, there is always corruption inherent in the world. But there's still always an understanding that there is hope. So the people of Middle-earth always fight against evil, because they believe that there is a God, even though they don't mention him every often. Then they believe that God's love for his creation is the hope that God will save and take care of what he has created. So according to Tolkien, he himself said that The Lord of the Rings is a fundamentally religious work. And he also said that the religious element is absorbed in the story and the symbolism. And this same facts of the fundamental religious nature and the religious symbolism applies to all of Tolkien's works in the whole of the Legendary. But as I said, it's not meant to preach, but to be as good stories as possible. But how do you get a good and moving story? According to Tolkien, it can be only done by approaching themes such as good versus evil, facing death, and gaining a sense of redemption. These are spiritual themes, not themselves answers to religious questions, but pointing indirectly towards answers which may be found elsewhere. Nevertheless, even though it is more the religious symbolism is indirect, a person who is called God is directly mentioned in the Legendary. And this person is Eru Ilúvatar, the one Father of all. And now, Eru means literally the one. It is formed from the base Era, which is the word that means one or single or alone in Elvish. And U is the ending that means a person. So Eru literally means the one person. And Ilúvatar means the father of all. It is formed from two words, Ilúve, which means everything, the whole of creation, and Atar, which means father. And in the Silmarillion, this name of God is mentioned like several dozen times. But in the Lord of the Rings, this Eru, the one, is mentioned only once by name. And in The Hobbit, he isn't mentioned at all. But in fact, in the Lord of the Rings, there are several also indirect mentions of God, which we will come to when we talk about the Lord of the Rings. Nevertheless, knowing that Eru is behind everything in Tolkien's stories is a key factor for understanding the stories. The Silmarillion lays the groundwork for this interpretation, and for that the religious perspective is always based on the fact that there is a God behind everything. The Lord of the Rings is in fact practical. It takes this theory into practice without explicitly mentioning the theory that Eru, the God, is behind everything. And let us now go to the person of God himself in Tolkien's works. Eru Ilúvatar, as I said, is the one, and Eru is a proper name. Like in the Bible, the God is in the Old Testament oftentimes called Yahweh or Jehovah, and that is a proper name, like anything like Eric or Peggy or Pauli. And his other name is Ilúvatar, which means Father of all, and this name was given to God by the elves because they knew that God was their father. But the name Eru, the One, was given by the angelic beings in Tolkien's works, the Valar. And the fact is that there is no common known for a God. Tolkien's works is so strictly monotheistic that one cannot talk about gods in general as a concept. But there are beings that can be considered close to gods in Tolkien's works. And these are the Valar, the powers. But unlike gods, they cannot be considered worshipful. So Tolkien himself translated this sometimes as angel. And the Valar, the powers, sort of rule over the world, but are very distant oftentimes. But the one is, as I said, is probably a translation from the language of this Valar, and it reflects the fact that the creator of Tolkien's work is completely monotheistic, like in the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.